Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Maria returned around 7 in the evening, and Jace could barely look at her. He did not say a word about the fact that he knew what she had done during the day, but their conversation was very superficial. That night, he could not sleep for a long time, thinking about Maria, whom he had known for many years. He remembered the compassionate woman he had seen a year ago when she realized she still loved her ex-husband. Then he remembered what she did to Gary and her children. As far as he knew, she had not contacted them since they took the Corvette. "What is on your mind, Maria?" he thought. Mike Sakura sent one of his employees to follow Maria. Over 2 weeks of observation, she would meet 2 men at noon in Flint Park, leave her car, and ride with them. She met with them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of both weeks. On the first day, they drove to a restaurant and then to the house where Paul. They lived there, arriving around 1:30 p.m. and not leaving until 4:30 p.m. Mike found out that the house did not belong to a man named Paul, but actually belonged to William Jeffers. Mike managed to contact Mr. Jeffers, who was in California and was expected to return over the weekend. Mr. Jeffers explained that Paul, whose surname is CRS, looked after the house while the owner was away. Paul had responded to a Craigslist advertisement, provided references, and appeared to be the most reliable of the 4 candidates. Mike explained the situation to Mr. Jeffers, and he agreed to install a surveillance camera on his property. Maria stayed home on Tuesday, and a second detective checked the house on Wednesday. The house stood on 20 acres of land, surrounded by trees, with a large swimming pool in the backyard. The detective installed a wireless motion sensor camera on the corner of the house to record activity around the pool. The detective collected video, photographs, and audio recordings from the restaurant, then from a shopping center, several bars, and finally, on Friday, from the swimming pool. When the 2-week observation period was over, Jace met with Mike to discuss the results. "Well, there is good news and bad news. We have collected all the evidence you asked for, but we do not know who these 2 men are, except that Maria called one Paul and the other Mark," Mike explained. "The house where they stay is in Delow. It belongs to William Jeffers, who only comes home on weekends. Paul gets paid to look after the house while Mr. Jeffers is in California," Mike continued. "Mr. Jeffers told me that Paul's last name is CRS, but I cannot find anything to confirm that name," Mike added. "We can continue monitoring. The men also live at the Woodlands Apartments on Deerbrook Lane on weekends. The apartment is rented in the name of John Davis, but we do not know if it belongs to either of these 2 men or someone else," Mike reported. "What about Paul's driver's license? Is it possible to find him through the motor vehicle department?" Jace asked. "The vehicle he is using belongs to Mr. Jeffers," Mike replied. "What about the audio and video evidence?" Jace asked. "The audio recording was made in the restaurant on the first day of observation. On it, Maria addresses them by name, only by name. We also took photos with the date and timestamps of when they entered and left the establishments they visited, and when they arrived and left the house," Mike explained. "Is there video evidence of her interactions with these men?" Jace asked cautiously. "Yes, there is. They spent the night together. Would you like to see it?" Mike asked. "No, just make a copy. I will watch it later when I am alone," Jace replied, holding back tears. "Do you want us to continue monitoring them?" Mike asked. "Just find out who they are and what they do," Jace replied. "It will be done," Mike assured him. "What did you say the owner of the house's name is?" Jace asked. "William Jeffers. Our surveillance camera covers the pool area. The only incriminating event we captured on tape happened on Friday during the first week of observation. The 2 men left the house about an hour before Mr. Jeffers returned home Friday evening and did not return until late Sunday evening after he left again," Mike explained. They said their goodbyes, and Jace returned to his office. He asked Robin not to connect him with anyone until further notice. Then he walked into his office, closed the door, inserted a copy of the surveillance DVD, and sat down to watch. The recording began with the 3 of them swimming in the pool. Soon, Paul and Mark surrounded Maria. Her bikini was thrown onto the concrete patio, followed by both men's swimming trunks. The camera clearly recorded what was happening, and it was obvious that they were engaging in an intimate encounter. They then left the pool and moved to a blanket laid out on the patio. Just like the first time, the trio did everything they could. Jace watched only a little, rewinding most of the tape. It was painful for him to watch. Jace asked his partner, Porter Carlson, to prepare the divorce papers but wanted to know more about the 2 men before filing and serving Maria with the papers at home. Jace and Maria barely spoke, and Jace began sleeping in the guest room. Maria continued to see the two men and became more daring, pleasing them in the car as they drove. A few weeks later, Jace met up with Mike Sakura again. Mike reported that on some occasions, Mark was. When Paul and Maria returned to the house in Delaware, Mark was absent. They were not sure if he was already inside, but he had not been seen in recent days. Mike contacted Mr. Jeffers again by phone to make sure nothing had been missed. He informed Mr. Jeffers that the necessary evidence had been collected and that the camera had been removed. I have been coming to the house every week since mid-June, and nothing has ever gone missing. He leaves the house in perfect condition, so I do not have too many complaints about it, but I do not approve of him having meetings with a married woman in my home, Mr. Jeffers said. Mike asked if he knew who Mark was and what his last name was, but Mr. Jeffers replied that he knew nothing about anyone by that name. I will try to look around to help, and I will sack Paul, or whatever his name is, but I only have 3 weeks left here. I do not want to look for someone new at this late stage, if you know what I mean, he added. I understand, and that will give us 3 more weeks to find out who he really is, Mike replied. The scheme involving Maria, Paul, and Mark continued over the next few weeks, with Mark missing several times. Paul did not tell Maria that the house belonged to Mr. Jeffers, much less that Mr. Jeffers would be returning soon. On Monday, after Mr. Jeffers returned for good, Maria arrived at Flint Park at noon to meet Paul and Mark and head to Paul's house for their afternoon meeting. She waited until almost 12:30 and, beginning to worry that something had happened, headed to Delaware. Maria rarely took her mobile phone with her as she never got used to technology. Arriving at the house, she went to the door and rang the bell. Mr. Jeffers opened the door. "Yes, how can I help you, miss?" he asked. "I am looking for Paul or Mark." "Are they not at home?" asked Maria. "Paul no longer works here. His services are no longer required. As for this Mark you speak of, I can assure you there is no one here by that name," Mr. Jeffers replied. Maria felt a heavy lump growing in her chest and an emptiness in her soul. "But I thought this was Paul's house." "He brought me here several times," Maria said, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Paul looked after my house while I was in California. I posted an ad and hired him through Craigslist. We talked Friday night. He said he had to be in Mississippi by this morning for an interview and was planning to leave last night. By the way, the car I lent him is now parked in the parking lot of an apartment complex in Columbus. I will have to arrange for it to be transported back to me," the man replied. "Interview? But he runs his own software development company, and this is supposedly his home," Maria said in an alarmed tone. "I am sorry he deceived you. My name is William Jeffers, and I have my own company, Home PC Solutions. You can rest assured this is truly my home," he said. "Just a minute," he added, going inside the house. A few minutes later, he returned with a phone book and opened the page with his name and address. Upset, Maria apologized for disturbing him, got into her car, and drove home. "I hope you can sort this out," William said as she turned to leave. Maria was heartbroken. She had truly begun to fall in love with Paul. Of course, Mark slept with her too, but she considered him just a friend with benefits. She thought that she and Paul had a future and that her relationship with Jace was almost over. But now everything had changed, and the more she thought about it, the more she realized she should try to reconnect with Jace, starting tonight. Mike Sakura spoke with Jace on Monday afternoon. "I am sorry, but we lost them. The last time we saw them was on Saturday afternoon. After that, we did not see them again. Today we found out that they moved out of the apartment. The name John Davis turned out to be a pseudonym, as was the name Paul CRS. These names do not match photographs of any of the suspects. We only know the second man is Mark. We do not have his last name to track him down. They left Mr. Jeffers' car in the parking lot of the apartment complex. Apparently, they left in a different car and took almost nothing with them because our investigator did not notice anything unusual," Mike reported. "Thank you for all your efforts. I also wanted to confront these two, but apparently it was not meant to be," Jace said. That night, when Jace returned home, Maria had prepared a delicious dinner: New York steaks, baked potatoes, and salad. Jace was a little shocked when Maria walked up to him and wrapped her arms around his neck. "I love you, Jace," Maria said in a soft voice. "Do you want to have a little fun today, handsome?" Jace did not say anything. He just looked at her. He almost burst into tears, apologized, and left the room. He knew that deep down, Maria came to him only because her lovers had. They fled the city. Maria did not understand what was happening. "Aren't you going to eat, honey?" she asked. Without saying a word, Jace walked into the living room and sat down. His thoughts drifted back to how close he and Maria used to be. He was tormented by memories of what he had seen that day, when Maria was in the car with Paul and Mark, as well as the video of their time by the pool. A few minutes later, Maria entered the living room to see if he was going to join her for dinner. Jace said, "I will be there in a minute." He had already made a decision that morning. Maria would be given a notice, but first he had other plans. He called his partner, Porter Carlson, and asked for a favor. "Great. I will see you after I have had dinner." "Thanks again," Jace said. Dinner went smoothly. Afterwards, Jace told Maria that he had to take some documents to Porter and would be back soon. Arriving at Porter's, Jace asked him to arrange for the notice to be served in the morning. "I will call when it is needed and send you a message to let you know when to knock on the door," Porter said. "I am sorry it came to this, Jace." "It is hard to believe what Maria did," Porter added. "Yes, I know. I could not even think she was capable of this, but I have irrefutable evidence on these tapes," Jace replied. "Are you sure she was not under the influence of any illegal substances?" Porter asked. "It is hard to say, but I am almost certain she was not," Jace answered. "Okay. I have to go. I do not want to make her wait for our last night together," Jace said with a small chuckle. When he returned home, Maria was just getting out of the shower. Jace hurried to the kitchen and took the medication Porter had given him. After waiting for Maria to finish in the bathroom, he went to take a shower himself. Closing the door, he allowed his emotions to take over. He was overcome with sadness from the memories of the happy years he had spent with Maria. Hot water flowed over his body as he sobbed quietly. Why? Why did she do that? "I love her so much," he whispered. He remembered Gary and what their children had said about how Gary had literally killed himself out of grief. Now, he felt the same, but he knew that in his case he was in control of the situation. She disappeared from Gary's life. Maybe I can forgive her. No. That is impossible. I saw what kind of person she is. If only it were just one incident, but she was involved with others too. And then those late-night videos of her. I just cannot stand it, he said to himself. Jace pushed the bad thoughts about Maria out of his head and started thinking about what he planned to do with her tonight. The medication began to take effect. Damn, he thought. This really works. He walked out of the bathroom to find Maria wearing a small, sheer black nightgown. The obvious bulge forming a tent in his boxers caused a reaction from Maria. "Oh my God, Jace. Are you glad to see me, or what?" she declared. Jace walked over and turned on the camera to record their time together. "Oh, and you are becoming a bit of a pervert too," she said in a sultry voice. She knelt down, trying to hide her feelings. Her thoughts were confused, caught between resentment and a desire to understand Jace. After a few moments, he decisively picked her up and carefully placed her on the bed. His gaze was cold, but at the same time, there was a kind of firm determination in it. Having taken off her nightgown, he froze for a few seconds as if thinking about something. Then his fingers slid over her shoulders, leaving light marks as if he was trying to stay on the edge. It was not a gentle touch, but rather a way to show that he was in charge now. Maria was a little taken aback, not used to this side of Jace. However, from her facial expression, it was clear that she was not frightened, but rather surprised. She was still trying to understand what he wanted to achieve with this behavior. Trying not to dwell on his emotions, Jace changed his tone and his movements became more restrained. He pulled away, trying to gather himself, and suddenly ran his fingers softly over her cheek as if asking for forgiveness. "What are you doing there, you prankster?" Maria asked slightly, her voice carrying a note of playful reproach. Jace answered her with a mysterious smile, focusing on their closeness. Their relationship had always been filled with passion, but tonight there was something special. There was tension in the air that they both felt. He tried to be attentive, paying close attention to her every reaction to make this moment unforgettable for both of them. With every second, their movements became more and more synchronized, as if they were reading each other's thoughts. "Oh, Jace, this is so wonderful," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Their interaction reached an emotional peak, filling the room with an atmosphere of true harmony. This moment was special, as if their connection had reached a new level, strengthening their trust and understanding. When it was all over, Maria looked at him and smiled. "I have been wanting to give you something special for a long time," she said. They both felt that this day would be one of the most memorable in their relationship. "That was wonderful. Can we do this more often?" Maria asked shyly. "So, what turned you into a raving romantic tonight?" Jace asked with a smile. "It has been a long time, and I thought maybe this might interest you again," Maria said, then added, "I read about it in one of those women's magazines last week." I have never done this with anyone before, and I think I liked it. Jace thought about trying to start again, but after Maria pretended she had never done anything like this before, the memories of seeing her on video came flooding back. Maria tried to cuddle up to him, but he said he had had a hard day and needed to sleep. The dream troubled Jace deeply. His thoughts were consumed by life with Maria, and he regretted ever seeing the video. Even though it had happened before they met, it destroyed her innocence in his eyes. After witnessing her recent actions with Paul and Mark, or whatever their real names were, he could no longer be with her. He knew she would have been with him yesterday if they had not left town. Then, as if in retaliation, she acted in a way that showed she would have done just that if they had stayed. If we could discover this behavior together, that would be wonderful, he thought. I really enjoyed last night, Maria said softly. The next morning, Jace woke up to Maria pleasuring him. The medication had stopped working long ago, so it was of little effect. He looked at his watch. It was 7:45 a.m. He asked Maria to let him stand for a minute and left the room to make a phone call. Porter already knew that Jace would not come until noon or perhaps not at all, but Jace pretended to stay home for Maria's sake. In reality, it was for her sake, but not in the way she expected. The delivery was due to arrive in 30 minutes. Jace told Maria to go into the living room, promising to join her in a minute. He took the CD of her time at the pool with Paul and Mark, then grabbed the phone and camera from the dresser. Entering the living room, Jace plugged the camera into the auxiliary jack on the DVD player and inserted the disc into the device. He took the remote control and sat down on the sofa. Maria, still wearing nothing, sat down next to him. Jace made sure the player was in play mode and pressed play. Images from the previous night appeared on the 60-inch plasma TV. "Wow, honey, this turns me on," Maria said. She carefully removed his underwear and, with tenderness, continued to caress him while watching the screen. Jace felt a wave of excitement, and his body responded with a strong feeling of attraction. He gently placed his hands on the back of her head, guiding her movements to increase their intimacy. At the moment of climax on the screen, he felt a new surge of emotions, which were expressed in their mutual passion. Maria, as before, accepted him readily, never ceasing to show her care and tenderness. Jace paused the video and asked her to let him stand for a minute. He took the remote control and headed to the bedroom. "Shall we watch the rest of the recording?" Maria asked. "Yes, just wait a little," Jace replied. Entering the bedroom, he got dressed and sent a message to the delivery service. "Wait 5 minutes, then knock." Returning to the living room, he quietly crept up behind Maria. She winced as she realized he was there. "Do not turn around, just watch," he whispered. "Video, Maria," Jace said quietly, not wanting her to notice that he was already dressed. He switched the player to DVD mode and pressed play. Maria stared at the television screen, not immediately understanding what she was seeing. Then she realized it was herself laughing while she was with Paul and Mark in the car. "Oh my God, it was nothing. I was drunk, and they encouraged me. It is not what it seems. Oh my God, Jace, I am sorry." Jace stopped the recording and looked at her. "It was nothing, right? Are you sure?" he asked again. "Are you sure? Who are these two?" "These are just old acquaintances, nothing more." "And that was the only time," Maria began. "So, you did not spend the night with any of them?" Jace interrupted. "Oh no, I told you, we were drunk, and they dared me." "How did you end up alone with these two?" "We went out as a group, their girlfriends, my friends. We were at BJ's restaurant and brewery and started drinking. I was driving with the girls, and they all wanted to go up to the lake, but I told them I did not feel like going. One guy, Paul, said he had an errand in that part of town and could give me a ride home. That is how I ended up in the car with them." Jace chuckled and shook his head. "You have a short memory, Maria." "What?" "It is true," she said, tears beginning to flow down her cheeks. "We were drinking, and I do not remember how, but we started playing Truth or Dare." "How did you get this video?" "You three were in your car. I pulled up next to you on North High Street and took the video myself. You were so carried away by them that you did not even notice my hand sticking out of the window. You were going west on Battles Avenue. You were not even going in the direction you came from BJ's, you were heading here. I told you we were drunk. We must have gotten turned around or something," she said. "And you did not have any intimate moments with them?" Jace asked. "No, I did not." Jace pressed play again. Maria turned to look at the screen. There she was with Paul and Mark in the pool at Mr. Jeff's house. Maria, still completely undressed, sat on the sofa and sobbed quietly. The doorbell rang. Jace walked to the front door and opened it for the process server. "She is right there," he said. pointing to the couch. Maria did not even try to cover herself. When she looked up and saw a young man walking toward her, sitting there unclothed, she felt her face turn red and a tingling sensation between her legs. "Maria B. Ballard?" he asked. She nodded. He handed her a large envelope. "You have been served," he said in a trembling voice. "If you stay here, maybe you will have a night with her too," Jace said, then turned and walked out the door. Maria jumped up and followed Jace outside. The young man, about 20 years old, took a good look at Maria before turning his attention to the television. Curse, he thought, seriously considering what Jace had just said. Crap, Jace muttered. "Jace, wait." Maria screamed. Jace got into his car, and Maria ran and climbed into the passenger seat. In his emotional state, he did not have the sense to lock the car before she got in. "What are you doing, Maria?" he asked through tears. "Jace, I love you." "I am sorry. I do not know why." "Maybe you were reliving the time when all of James Wilkins's friends were with you intimately," she said. Jace interrupted angrily. Maria's face turned pale. "Oh my God, no. How did you know about this?" "I saw one of your performances on tape," Jace said. No, this cannot be." "Who showed you?" she whispered. "In January," he replied. "That is why you lost interest in me, isn't it?" "I will be honest with you. Yes, I think that was my problem. And last night, I took the pill. I was thinking about taking the third one, and then I remember you, and the men around you. Even with the pill, I can say it would be no use trying," Jace said, his voice beginning to break. "Maria, just get out of the car," he added. "No, Jace, I love you. You know how much I care. You went to that house in Delaware yesterday to be with someone else," he interrupted. "How do you know I was there yesterday?" "You were stalking me, right?" she asked, surprised. "Damn it, Maria, where do you think I got the video of you spending time with those two?" Jace responded. "William Jeffers, the owner of the house, gave Mike permission to install cameras there. So you asked Mike Secur to keep an eye on me?" "It is humiliating," Maria said quietly. "Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to admit to your friend that your wife has been with someone else?" "You do not have the slightest idea," Jace replied. "If Mr. Jeffers gave Mike permission to install the cameras, then Mike must have told him why, right?" Maria asked. "Mr. Jeffers called Mike yesterday after you left his house. You went there hoping for intimacy, but there was none. You were just disappointed last night and took it out on me. Otherwise, it would have been the same night that we always have, which I always liked." Maria placed her hand gently on his shoulder and asked, "Didn't you enjoy it yesterday, Jace?" "That is not the point," he said. "Yesterday, you did not need me. You just wanted intimacy. That is all." "No, I wanted to improve our marriage, and only because your two lovers are no longer around." "How long before you find new ones?" Jace paused. "Something inside me died when I saw you with those men on the recording. At first, I thought maybe James might have given you something, but I saw the look in your eyes and the way your lip trembled as you experienced pleasure several times. I realized that no one was forcing you. You were really enjoying yourself." He paused again. "I saw that look in your eyes last night. I think you were thinking about them and, for a moment, forgot where you were. That is why you acted the way you did yesterday. But you liked it yesterday, didn't you? You do not understand, do you? I really enjoyed it yesterday, but if we had discovered this side of you together, on our own, without this painful experience, I would have no complaints. But the realization that you became like this because of that, I cannot even explain. Maria, do you have any idea how many women have tried to flirt with me and have literally thrown themselves at me?" "No, but I guessed it from the way they looked at you," she said, embarrassed. "Not once did I ever consider being with any of them. I was faithful to you. I loved you with all my heart," he said, his voice trembling again. "I still love you, Maria. We can get through this, please." "No, Jace, no. I do not think I can. Loving you does not matter anymore. I do not think. No, I know I cannot be with you after what you did. Now, get out of my car." Maria got out of the car, looked at him, and said, "Jace, what I did with Paul and Mark, and on those tapes, was just a physical connection. Nothing more. And my words yesterday, Jace, it was not about love, only about the night." Jace backed up and drove away, leaving her standing on the road. Maria stood motionless for several seconds. Tears began to flow down her cheeks. She thought about it, but could not tell if she was crying because of Jace or because Paul and Mark were gone. Meanwhile, the bailiff was still standing in the house, stunned by what had just happened. His gaze was fixed on the plasma screen where the video of Paul and Mark ended. He did not even notice when Maria, completely without clothes, rushed past him and quietly closed the door. Maria approached the bailiff. Damn it, he thought, feeling his excitement growing stronger. I need to leave immediately. He turned to leave but saw Maria standing right in front of him. His heart nearly stopped with fright. God, you scared me. I need to go, he said nervously. Feeling lucky? Maria asked softly. He muttered something inaudible. Maria walked over, ran her hand gently over his groin, and then pulled him toward her, kissing him passionately. With her left hand, she caressed him, and with her right, she pulled him closer, insisting, take off your clothes. I want you. He hesitated, but Maria began to pull off his t-shirt. After a moment, he came to his senses and began to remove the rest of his clothes. Maria smiled at him and invited him to sit next to her on the sofa. Her eyes sparkled with excitement and energy. Let us have some fun, she suggested enthusiastically. Their communication became more relaxed and easy. He supported her idea, responding to her initiative with the same energy. Maria enjoyed the moment and allowed herself to relax, forgetting about her recent experiences. Her laughter filled the room. After a long day, the stress finally began to leave her, and she allowed herself to be distracted. By thoughts of the past, it was all behind her, she told herself. Now, she just wanted to enjoy the moment. Their conversation became more cheerful and relaxed, reminding them both how important it sometimes is to forget about everything and simply enjoy life. Thank you for this, Maria said quietly, looking at her new acquaintance. He smiled back warmly, filling the moment with kindness and sincerity. When Jace arrived at the office, he realized that in his haste, he had forgotten the documents he needed for the Smithers case at home. Crap, I do not want to go back there, he muttered under his breath. I will be back in 20 minutes. I left the file for the Smithers case at home, he told Robin. She smiled and said, Porter told me you might not come at all today. Amazing, Jace thought. For the first time, he noticed how beautiful Robin was. He had never paid attention to this before because he had been devoted to Maria and did not allow himself such thoughts. No, Lord, what am I thinking? She must be 20 years younger than me, and she probably has a boyfriend, he thought, but he still loved Maria deeply. On the way home, he thought about Gary. It was quite clear to him why Gary had ended up in such a state. Maria had that effect on people. When he arrived at the house, he noticed that the bailiff's car was still parked there. No, this cannot be. She would not really, he whispered to himself. He got out of the car and carefully closed the door to avoid making any noise. Then he cautiously walked to the front door and slowly opened it, listening carefully. His heart sank when he heard familiar sounds coming from inside. He quietly stepped inside and looked around the corner into the living room. There on the sofa, Maria was with the bailiff, giving herself to him with all her passion. Jace froze, shocked by what he saw. More in shock than anger, his first thought was to go in and stop it. But his experience as a divorce lawyer made him hesitate. A burning pain pierced through him. He had seen videos of her with other men before, but then he thought she might have been forced or seduced. Now, everything was different. She was clearly inviting this man. What young man in his right mind would refuse such an opportunity with a beautiful woman? Jace took his phone out of his pocket and recorded a short video of what was happening on the couch. Then he quietly left the house and carefully closed the door behind him. To hell with the documents. He still did not have the strength to work that day. As he got into his car, he felt the weight of the situation. Tears began to flow down his cheeks. It was the most painful wound of his life. Jace struggled to make it back to the office. When he entered, Robin noticed he had not brought any files with him. She wanted to ask about it, but looking at his face, she immediately realized something was wrong. Robin rose from her desk and walked over to him. Before he could close the office door, she followed him inside and gently closed it. Are you all right, Mr. Ballard? Are you feeling unwell? She asked with concern. Jace tried to speak, but his emotions overwhelmed him. I am fine, was all he could say before breaking down in tears. He sat down at the table, lowered his head into his hands, and began to sob. Not knowing what else to do, Robin walked over and hugged him. I am here, Mr. Ballard, she said, her voice shaking. Seeing her boss in such a vulnerable state was a real blow to her. She truly admired him. He was strong, kind, and gentle. Now, she realized how deeply vulnerable he was. After calming down, Jace told Robin about the situation with Maria and what he had witnessed shortly before when he returned home. Robin did not say much in response, only that she was sorry for Maria. She had had a slight fondness for Jace since her first month working for him. It was not because he was a lawyer or because of his good looks. She was attracted to his character, his loving and gentle way of communicating with people, and how much he loved his wife. It pained her to know that Maria was the cause of his suffering. Now, seeing him so depressed, her sympathy only grew stronger. That evening, Jace gathered everything he needed from the house and stayed in a small apartment next to his office, leaving the house for Maria. He always called ahead to make sure she had no guests before coming home for any errands. He did not want to see her with anyone else. It was too painful. Maria was served with a summons on Tuesday, but the bailiff came to the house every evening that week. On Friday morning, as he was getting ready to leave, Maria stunned him with a question. "Listen, do you have any friends who could come with you tonight?" The 20-year-old remembered how he was. He was intrigued by the video playing on the plasma screen. The first day he saw her with two men, he thought to himself, "Damn it. Of course, I know. How much do you need?" he asked. "I do not care, just not too much." "I do not want a big commotion," she answered. "By the way, I never asked, how old are you?" the man asked. "A lady never speaks her age," she smiled. "Let us just say I could be your grandmother and leave it at that," she added with a playful tone. "Seriously? Wow, you do not look like that at all. But one thing I know for sure, you are a real inspiration," he laughed. That evening, the man came with 3 friends. But that is a story for another time. Everyone left happy, as did Maria. In the following weeks, the meetings of this small group happened several times. Then Thanksgiving and Christmas came, but Maria still had no contact with her children. She also began to avoid the very young company that regularly visited her. Although they brought her a lot of pleasure, their behavior was starting to irritate her. One visitor after another became too much for her. Did we really behave the same way at their age? She wondered. This generation is doomed, Lord. She began visiting the Grandview Cafe on West 3rd Avenue almost every night. It was a prestigious establishment with a massive oak counter in the center of the room, popular with a more mature, professional crowd. She lost count of how many men she took from there to her place. One of them, large and muscular, happened to be nearby when her company suddenly decided to drop by for a visit. That was their last visit. The man, so to speak, put the fear of God into them. He scared Maria too, and she did not invite him again. Shortly after New Year's, Maria met Kevin Marshall. This happened on a Friday evening. Kevin walked into the cafe to have a beer and immediately caught her attention. His jeans and Carhartt jacket made him look like a rugged outdoorsman. It seemed like he had just wandered in there by accident. Maria walked up to him and sat down next to him at the bar. "Hello, stranger. You look like you're lost. May I offer you a drink?" This was the first time in Kevin's life that a woman had offered him a drink. He looked at her, trying to figure out her motives. "Well, perhaps. But are you sure you do not mistake me for someone else?" "My name is Kevin, by the way," he replied. "I am Maria, and no, I have not confused you with anyone. I just found you interesting. Why do we not grab some drinks and find a table?" They got up, found a table, and sat talking for several hours. She learned that his full name was Kevin Joseph Marshall. He was 58 years old and had recently moved to Columbus, to a small apartment on Broad Street. He worked for the Ohio Department of Transportation and was going to be involved in a local highway project for about 6 months. He was divorced. His first wife had left him for her boss. He had not dated a woman in nearly 20 years since she left. Maria was fascinated and could not believe how many parallels she found between his life and hers. It was simply incredible. His face, the shape of his body, especially his coarse black hair and mustache, it all reminded her of Gary, the same appearance that had once attracted her to Paul. He looked like Gary, but the similarity was striking. Kevin could have been his twin brother. She told him that she was in the process of getting a divorce but did not go into details so as not to scare him off or make him think she was just looking for fun. "I really like this man," she thought. They left the cafe together. As they approached the street, Kevin noticed that his truck had a flat tire. "This is great, and I do not have a spare tire," he said. "I can give you a ride if you want." "It is not a problem," Maria suggested. It was around midnight when they arrived at Kevin's apartment. He really enjoyed her company that evening and did not want it to end, so he invited her to come in for a cup of coffee. "That is all I have. That is why I was at the bar. I just wanted to have a beer," he said. Maria felt the same way. She felt drawn to him and agreed to come in for a while and then ended up staying the night. On Saturday morning, she took him back to the cafe, and Kevin took the wheel off his truck to get it fixed. After that, they stayed together until Monday, when Kevin left for work. Maria was completely confused. She had never fallen in love so quickly and so strongly before, except for her relationship with Gary. Kevin did not just sleep with her. He made love to her. She felt his inner need. He was almost like a teenager experiencing love for the first time. He had been without a woman for so long that he was nervous and uncertain about what to do, but still, he gave Maria a pleasant time. Was she fantasizing that he was Gary? When Kevin arrived at his apartment after work on Monday evening, Maria was waiting for him with several suitcases full of clothes. Maria and Jace's divorce was uncontested. She took half of the money from their joint accounts but told Jace he could keep the house. She took what she wanted and moved into Kevin's apartment. She did not hate Jace. She genuinely cared about him, but she had simply fallen out of love. In addition, she still had $1 million left from the money Edison had left her. Jace still had a small crush on Maria, but he started dating Robin, and thoughts of Maria quickly faded. The affection of a woman 20 years younger often has this effect on men. The divorce was finalized in April. Kevin and Maria were married a month later. Now, she had become Maria Marshall. Jace and Robin also got married shortly after Kevin and Maria's wedding. By July, Robin, in her early 30s, was expecting her and Jace's first child. What happened to Maria? Did she get what she deserved? Was she thrown aside? No. Both marriages maintained friendly relations with each other. No, they did not spend time together as friends, but there was no hostility between them either. Jace thought Kevin was a good choice for Maria, and Maria was happy that Robin was giving Jace a child, something she could never do. Kevin owned the house where he grew up. His parents had left it to him as an inheritance. It was a house very similar in size and age to the one where Maria had lived with Gary. The house was about 40 miles southwest of Columbus, in Hillsborough, and Kevin and Maria moved there. Maria was pleased with this decision because she was horrified at the thought that they might meet someone from her past or hear mentions of him. Besides, she was now closer to Joshua and Jacob. She restored her relationship with her children by telling them that she was going through a difficult period. Jace told them that he was the one who filed for divorce but never explained the reasons. He only said that he could not handle the videotape and that their father's death had caused problems for Maria. In a way, this was true. Jace noticed a change in Maria immediately after Gary died. After watching the tape, he almost lost the ability to be with her. Her love for Kevin was sincere. She introduced him to Josh and Jake, who seemed to accept him. Perhaps it was because he reminded them of their father. Maybe that was why their mother fell in love with him. They noticed how she looked at Kevin and how she interacted with him. She acted the same as they remembered her with their father and seemed more open toward them. One day, Maria went to the bank to withdraw a large sum of money to build a new house on Kevin's land. It was supposed to be a surprise, but the surprise was for her. Her money was gone. Her first thought was Jace, but she knew him better. Then she realized who had taken it. It had to be Paul and Mark. That was why they left town so quickly, without a word, she thought. When she was talking to Paul, she thought there might be a future between them, and she casually mentioned that she had her own account separate from Jace. Mark appeared soon after, and the trap was set. That day, while Maria was drinking with Paul and Mark quietly took the keys from her purse and made copies of all of them. This happened while she was sleeping on the couch for several hours. Paul took her driver's license and made copies of all her documents. On the days when Paul and Maria were together and Mark did not come, he went to Maria and Jace's house. It did not take him long to find her safe and the notebook that contained all her bank account details and passwords. He copied all the information and put the notepad back. He looked for something related to their joint accounts but found nothing. He knew it was too risky to take anything else because he and Paul were still living in Mr. Jeff's house and did not want to raise suspicion. Once Paul and Mark settled in another city, they spent the next 3 months electronically transferring Maria's money into several different accounts. Under different names, Paul and Mark then sold large purchases at a discounted price. They lost the rest of the money in Las Vegas. At that time, they were in Florida working on another case involving an older widow. Given what Maria received in the divorce and Kevin paying for everything with his own money, she had not checked her bank account in months. Her monthly statements were sitting unopened in a box of unread mail at her and Kevin's house. Kevin was still working on a road project near Columbus, which was about an hour's drive from their home. He called and told Maria that, instead of working until 7 in the evening, they would now work until dark in order to complete the project faster. The sooner the project was completed, the sooner he could return to work closer to home. He said he would be back around 11 in the evening. Maria was glad that Kevin was working away from Hillsborough because it allowed him not to notice how upset she was. She never told him about the money Paul and Mark had stolen. Mentioning it might have changed everything. If an investigation were launched into her former lovers, facts about her intimate life with them could be revealed. Did she want to take that risk? A week had passed since she discovered the money was missing. As she sat in her rocking chair waiting for Kevin to return home, Maria thought about how much worse things could have gotten. She was used to being wealthy and had no idea whether she could return to her old life without luxury. Easy come, easy go, she thought. But this was far from easy for her. Looking back, she sincerely regretted ever allowing Jace to seduce her. She wished Debbie had convinced her that wealth and power were all that mattered. Now, gradually, she began to understand that happiness was more important. Maria knew that Gary was the true love of her life, and that she should never have left him. Perhaps he would still be alive today if she had not. A battle raged in her mind. Thoughts about her connection with Paul and Mark haunted her, as did memories of the men she had picked up at the Grandview Cafe and those young men. It was a terrible mistake, she thought. But on the other hand, if she had not gone there, she would never have met Kevin. Her mind raced, searching for answers to why she had done all this. Maria eventually fell asleep right there in the rocking chair. When Kevin returned from work, he took a quiet shower and then carefully carried her to bed. In her dream, Maria saw Gary. She saw that he had never died and that they were still together, just like the last time she had dreamed about him. The dream was very vivid. She and Gary were painting the bedroom in their old house, and Josh and Jake, still little boys, were running back and forth. After some time, they were sitting at the kitchen table having dinner together. It was the happiest time of her life. Then the scene shifted to the future. The kids were grown, and she and Gary were at Josh's place visiting their grandchildren. It confused her that Josh and his family lived in their old house. Where did she and Gary live then? Then she saw her and Gary drive up to the house she now lived in, or was it Kevin's house? She was not sure anymore. When they got out of the car, she smiled at Gary. It was definitely him. They opened the door and walked into the house, holding hands and sneaking kisses along the way. As they walked into the kitchen, Maria felt confused again. Kevin was sitting at the kitchen table, smiling at her and Gary as they entered. Maria walked up to Gary, kissed him, and then sat on Kevin's lap, kissing him as well. It seemed completely natural, and Gary did not seem to mind. "Goodbye, Maria," Gary said as he started to leave. "Goodbye, Gary," she replied sadly as she watched him go. After the front door closed, Maria and Kevin walked into the living room and watched out the window as Gary got into his car and started it. Kevin hugged Maria from behind as Gary pulled out of the driveway and then slammed on the gas, leaving tire marks. "What a cool car," Kevin remarked as he watched Gary's red 1969 Chevelle SS disappear into the distance. Maria woke up before her alarm the next morning, still thinking about the dream she had just had. It really hit home, making her realize that Maria felt like she was back where she had been 24 years ago. Kevin was enough for them to live comfortably, if not luxuriously, but it was enough, and that was what she needed. Early in the morning, Maria told Kevin about her 3 marriages but avoided the details. She was afraid that if she shared too much about her past, he might turn away from her. When Kevin woke up and got ready for work, Maria told him she needed to talk to him about her past that evening. "That evening," Kevin said, "about those explicit videos you made." Maria's face turned red, and she began to panic. Who told you about them?" she asked, worried. Kevin replied calmly, "I saw them. I still saw them in the 1990s, shortly after you made them." Maria looked surprised. Kevin continued, "And doesn't it bother you that I knew about this part of your past?" Maria hesitated, but then he said, "I met you before that night in the cafe in Columbus. You do not remember me, but my first wife worked at Cutler Industries in the shipping department. She and I saw you and your first husband at a party at James Wilkins's house in 1990. She noticed how he took you inside to show you the house. She said he was trying to seduce you. It was obvious. Then, after you left Gary and married James, she told me everything. She could not believe your husband did not notice what was going on." Kevin paused and added, "It is funny. While she was telling me all this and calling you names, she herself cheated on me with her boss, the man she eventually left me for." Maria began to ask, "But how did you?" then fell silent. Kevin continued, "The first time I saw you with Gary at a party, I thought he was very lucky. Even then, my wife began to distance herself from me. Her boss was not the first man with whom she cheated. I think there were several before him." Maria asked, "Then why did you want me, knowing what I did to Gary and what I was in those videos?" Kevin said, "I knew there was more to your story than what I was told. I do not know how to explain it, but I just felt something had happened that made you behave the way you did. I was in high school with that same Debbie, the one you know, Debbie Nolan, and I knew you spent some time with her when she worked at Cutler. Maria asked softly, how did you find out about the tapes? Kevin answered, after Karen left me for her boss. I did not date anyone else. I was not interested. I let myself go and threw myself into work. I rented your first record just for, well, you understand. Maria smiled and nodded. Kevin continued, I chose that record because there was a picture of you on the cover. After watching it, I realized that it was really you, but at the same time, it was not. It was your shell. Yes, you seemed to be enjoying yourself, but something in your eyes made me think you were silently screaming for help. He was silent for a few moments, then continued, I saw you in those ads for Jace's office. Mr. Ballard represented Karen in our divorce, and although he was her lawyer, I was not taken for a ride. I realized he was a good person, and I was glad that you left that man, James Wilkins. Kevin explained, Jace was. I do not know. Did I love him? Yes, I did. But was this feeling as strong as my love for Gary? No, it was not. When Gary died, I realized I still loved him. I think that is what ruined my relationship with Jace, and the fact that he found out about the tapes. Maria said, for 20 years, I have not been interested in anyone. And then what happens? I walk into a bar in Columbus for just a beer, and my life changes completely. I look up and see you, as beautiful as ever. You come to me. I thought you must have noticed someone you knew, and then you sat down next to me. And now you are my husband, and I have to pinch myself to make sure this is not a dream. Kevin said, I love you so much, Maria. Forget your past. Now you are with me. Maria replied, Kevin, I do not want you to think that I am comparing you to Gary, but you remind me so much of him. With you, I feel a calmness that I have not felt since the time I loved him. Sometimes, it even seems to me that he would approve of our relationship. By the way, Maria added, last night, I had a dream about Gary. Kevin asked, was it a good dream or a bad dream? Maria said, I never told you this, but the night before Gary died, I had a very vivid dream about him in which he said that he loved me. It was so real that when I woke up in the morning, I was not sure which was real, the dream or the 21 years I lived without him. Kevin listened quietly as Maria finished. I really was not sure. I am sure it was like a connection somehow. I cannot explain it, she said. When my father had a heart attack, I was out of town. He and I have always been very close. I had a dream in which he told me to hurry home. The next morning, I went back and managed to arrive an hour before he passed away. So, I believe what you say. Mary took a deep breath and asked, do you feel like he was trying to contact you again? Yes, it definitely seemed that way, she said, as a single tear rolled down her cheek. Let us just say that I think he approves of you, Mary said, and left it at that. I made a terrible mistake 24 years ago and have been trying to correct it ever since, she admitted. I thought big houses, new cars, and large bank accounts were the key to happiness. I am ashamed of some of the things I have done, but it seems like I have been given a second chance, and I am not going to miss it this time. She paused for a moment and then said, now, you better go, or you will be late for work. We will talk this evening. I love you, Kevin. They hugged, and Kevin kissed her goodbye before walking out to his old truck to go to work. Maria watched from the window as he drove away. She turned on the radio, and as the truck disappeared from sight, a Tim McGraw song played softly in the living room. It is funny how you start to miss things you never really thought about in this crazy world, Maria thought. She soaked up every word of the song. Just then, a bright red 1969 Chevelle SS sped down the road past their house. Maria smiled. Thank you, Gary. I will always love you, she whispered. Subscribe to our channel so that your love never fails you. Go ahead and listen to the next story because this story is nothing compared to what comes next. If you're under 18, please do not watch the next story.